Hi, it's Mark Owen from Moose Marketing MPR, the editor of Punchline magazine, and welcome to Punchline Talks, the business breakfast briefers, where each morning I invite a panel of business experts and civic leaders to join me into finding out what's happening in the national newspapers, what's going on in their own individual businesses and their own individual business sectors, and finally, what's caught their eye in this week's Punchline. I'd just quickly like to thank our fantastic sponsors, Hayswood's Accountants and Business Advisors. And if you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. Well, let's meet the fantastic crew today. Today, my panel of guests are Chris Nelson, Police and Crime Commissioner for Gloucestershire.
Morning.
The police, they have over 2,000 staff, a budget of 150 million. We've got Alisdair Garbutt, partner of Williams Solicitors. He specialises in commercial property. He's also a trustee of Cheltenham Open Door. We've got Dr. Polly Peck, Director of Business Engagement and Partnership at the University of Gloucestershire. Did you know they've got over 1,100 staff and a turnover of £80 million? And we know that because Polly just looked it up. And finally, and never least, we've got Simon Pigott, partner at Swan Financial Consultancy. He's got over 45 staff and they look after around 620 million of funds under management. So thank you all for joining Punchline Talks. We're just going to quickly have a quick look at the national newspapers, courtesy of the BBC. And we all know what it is about today. It's all about interest rates. The Bank of England warns of a long recession as interest rates rise by 0.5 point, says the Financial Times. The Times, Britain slides into crisis. The Daily Telegraph, recession to cause record drop in income. The Daily Mail, banker who's running out of credit, says the Mail. The Metro, the big squeeze, a bit like this waist suit I'm wearing, by the way, a bit of a tight squeeze in this today. The big squeeze again, says the Eye. The Daily Express, recession on the way, time to batten down the hatches. The Guardian, bank raises rates and warns of 13% inflation. And the Daily Star, don't you love them? We're going into recession for over a year. Inflation is heading for 50% and mortgages will soar, interest rates, blah, blah, blah. But the Premier League is back tonight. Thank goodness for that. Well, I don't think everybody will be agreeing in that, but there you go. Anyway, welcome to Punchline Talks. Chris, let's kick off with you first of all. I think, it's not looking great, is it?
No, I mean, that's my story. Recession to cause record drop in income in the Telegraph. And obviously yesterday, quite a big shock, 0.5% increase in interest rates, a looming recession the end of this year, all of next year, biggest recession for quite some time. It's very depressing with the cost of living going up, price of energy being a problem. I think we're all seeing it in our pockets. And then in the leadership election and the Conservatives between Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, there's a big discussion as to what is the best way to deal with this looming nightmare that's approaching.
It actually is coming down the track. I don't know about you, but I feel like there's no leadership at this particular moment. I was reading the paper today in the Times that Johnson's gone on holiday and the Chancellor's gone on holiday, the current ones. Polly, what do you reckon? I mean, how will it affect the university?
Well, it's really interesting, Mark, because they always say, and research bears this out across a number of different recessions, that the best place to be in a recession is in education. If you're studying and you're working for a degree, then hopefully you kind of ride it out a bit and you come out at the point where things are starting to pick up, full of new skills and new capabilities. Having said that, it's a really challenging time to be running a university. We've the market for degrees is quite challenging. It's quite chaotic at the moment. There are a large number of A-level students who haven't got offers. So the university is still open for clearing. We've got colleagues who are working really hard at that. And we're hoping that people will still be able to apply and still be able to come through. I think the market that we're in education, we have a lot of what we term widening participation students. So people who are the first in their families, for example, to come to university. And those people, you know, the debt that you build up and everything at university is quite challenging for them in a good year. So how this will actually impact them is, you know, that's quite difficult to say, and it is quite worrying. But, you know, I think we're a very supportive university. I think we're a very good area to be in. I think there's financial support and
I think in a recession, the best place to work is the public sector anyway. Let's be honest about it, rather than the private sector. I'm going to quickly ask Simon. Simon, obviously you work in the finances. For you guys, a recession, what does it mean for your company?
Well, to be honest, it's a bit of a double-edged sword for us, because we've obviously got staff and it's going to affect them in a big way. But as for us, you know, clients will not want money in the bank accounts at this particular moment. They'll be looking to get as much value as they can, because they're guaranteed to lose 13% over the next 12 months, according to the papers. With inflation eating into it, the buying power won't be the same. So we do tend to sort of do reasonably well, even during times of high inflation. But I would also say that I think everybody does overreact massively, and I've been caught in the trap myself. And if you're not careful, a recession is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because everything's so bad, we'll all hold on to our money, we won't buy anything. I did something similar in 2008 and was going to buy a new car and decided not to, because the world was going to hell in a handcart. And so you do have to sort of put it into some sort of perspective. Now, you know, one headline I saw was interest rates increase of 2,000%. Well, coming from 0.1%, yes, that's right. But you know, like I say, you just have to keep it in perspective.
I totally agree. And there's a danger here, looking at all those headlines, that the media will actually drive this recession.
That's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens.
Alistair, you're obviously commercial property and looking about the inflation and things like that. How will it affect your particular sector?
Well, I think the most obvious influence is the interest rates. Just like the housing market, in my area of work in commercial property, you know, obviously the interest rate going up affects commercial mortgages as well. And you know, there would be a danger of you know, banks reducing lending or stopping lending altogether. Well, not altogether, but you know, being much more careful who they lend to, which would slow the market. And at the moment, that isn't the case. Banks are lending. The market's really buoyant in commercial real estate.
All right.
And,
okay, well, sorry.
Yeah, and I think that you know, that there's a danger of going back sort of 10 years when banks were being overly cautious, and no one could buy property because the banks just weren't willing to lend.
Right. Okay. Well, no, thanks ever so much for that view. Okay, Chris, we're just going to quickly round on with the newspaper side. What other stories did you pick out?
Yeah, I got another one on Britain gives staycations a break to get away. In other words, I guess because everyone's been so fed up of being locked down at home in COVID and not being able to escape, everyone's going abroad now, trying to get out of Dover and the airports. And interestingly, it means that holidays in the UK are apparently dropping in price. I saw something that I thought you might be interested in, Mark. A shepherd's hut in Norfolk. It's 34% cheaper. I thought, you know, you might enjoy something like that.
I hate to say it, I think you're spot on, actually. as long as there's no TV, no radio, and no internet, it'd be right on my street.
Yeah, I mean, you and your little sheep together.
You've heard about that, have you? Anyway, okay, well, thank you for that. Polly, let's move on to you. What else have you picked out for the papers, please?
I think, well, alongside all the sort of stresses and strains of the economic climate that we're in and rising prices and things, there was a piece in the Guardian about don't take it out on our staff. And the Institute for Customer Service, the British Medical Association, various other august bodies have identified that there's been a really massive increase in aggressive clients, aggressive customers, abusive patients in doctors' surgeries, things like that. And the ICS said there's been a 25% increase in abuse over the last few months. And I think that's a really interesting climate to be in. We've talked before, I think that last time I was on here, we talked about staff shortages and so on, and that's affecting all sorts of different industries. And I think, unfortunately, the temptation for people when they're not getting the service that they want, whether that's in hospitality or the NHS or, you know, particularly one that's highlighted is the ambulance service. People are taking it out on the people who are still there, which is really unfortunate. And I think, you know, Chris has probably come across this as well, you know, the abuse and the attitude of people, which is just awful. And it really doesn't help with things like staff retention. It doesn't make people want to go into customer facing industries at all. And I think one of the things that really struck me in some of the narrative about it is that there, you know, people are being abused or whatever, and other people will, you know, other clients and customers will just stand there and let it happen. And I think, you know, that's probably something that we should all take on board, that if you see that happening, you should query it. I don't know if Chris has got a view.
Yeah, I'd love to you know, pop in and talk about that. I mean, post COVID, I do think people have changed quite a lot. There's less tolerance. There's more of a demanding public out there. Demand at the moment in our force control room has shot right up, and it's not just in Gloucestershire. It's across the whole country. And you talk about people, bystanders, just watching things happen. This is something that we're pushing out a lot of training on at the moment. For instance, to stop violence against women and girls. You know, if you see some sexist, misogynistic behavior, that people should step up to the plate and say something, because the people that do it often think this is normal, and other people do it as well. And it can make them stop and think. If bystanders, people around them, friends and family, or just people who see it happening, actually do something and say something and say that's unacceptable.
I tell you, there's a sign. I go to Highfields Garden Centre, and my wife noticed there's a new sign there that says, "Please don't be rude to our staff." Yeah. And I think you've really onto something there, Polly. It is a worry, and I hear from businesses, retail, hospitality, the aggression that they have all the time it's not acceptable. It really isn't. Thanks ever so much for picking that one out. Simon, what have you got from the papers today?
Well, I thought this was rather a curious one, and related to Gloucester. They think it's all over at the Rose West stand. Quite an own goal by Southend United, that they named their main stand in a new sponsorship deal, the Rose West stand. And I don't think they get away with that at Kingsholm somehow, but they've been forced to change it, I'm pleased to say. But I just thought that was quite a curious one. And the other one I picked out was the one financial product you shouldn't buy, which is a funeral plan, which has now been a regulated product through the FCA. And out of the 67 companies that were offering this type of plan, only 26 have survived the cull.
Wow.
Less than a third. And there's some 45,000 people with a company called Safe Hands, quite ironically, who are now will only get paid out until October from the prepaid funeral plans.
They went bust, didn't they? Didn't Safe Hands go bust or something?
Yes, yeah, they've gone because they couldn't get regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. But, you know, I'm all for that because I think it does stop bad practice on anything. I think the next thing that will be on the horizon will be cryptocurrency.
Got to do something there.
Got to be regulated at some point.
Totally. No, thanks ever so much for that. Alisdair, what have you picked out for us, please, sir?
Yeah, I picked out a couple of things. First one, in a more light-hearted way, is another holiday recommendation for you, Mark.
You all want to send me away. What's going on? You're trying to tell me something.
This isn't the Rose West Stand, is it?
No, I hope you like pottery. But in the Times, tourists turn to Pottery City for perfect staycation. Airbnb have come up with Stoke being the top of their list of UK destinations. So it's.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you just? Did you say Stoke?
Stoke. Yep, Stoke. I mean, it is saying that it's over the past 2 years, the number of listings jumped from 22 to 267, the biggest increase in the country. But that may be, they say, something to do with Bet365 being nearby. So I think that they've based their story on.
I know the fact it only used to be 22.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think the Pottery Museum would be worth a visit. The other actually quite surprised me when I was turning the pages in the Express this morning. National newspaper has mention of Cheltenham, young guns in rent revolution. So again, a property related. And there's a half a page in the Express in their property section about Latherham House in Cheltenham. More than 3/4 are tenants, and it's saying there's a revolution in the retirement villages where rather than buying, people at retirement are renting. And this place in Cheltenham, 83% are tenants, albeit rents start, it says, at £1,679 a month. So quite a high rent, albeit. But good point that, if you're in your elderly years, you might not want to be buying a property, spending stamp duty, etc. You can maybe gift money early and rent. So a bit interesting. Cheltenham in the Express.
Great stuff. We always like to see that. We always like to see Gloucestershire making the headlines for good stories. The one I picked out today was actually in the Sun. Was lazy Brits won't walk the walk. Idle Brits won't walk more than 335 meters, or roughly 10 minutes. That would get me down the road to my local pub. And the other one that I've got to point out in the Sun was this horrendous photograph. You'd appreciate this, Chris, as well. Well, this is this chap. Basically, a parking warden had given this guy a parking ticket, and he attacked the warden's car with a 4-foot machete. And then picked it up with a forklift truck, and then rammed it against the wall. Needless to say that the police came and took him away. But I know we all get a little bit angry with parking tickets and things, but that's taking it a bit too far. Anyway, right, let's get on to our own individual business areas and sectors. Chris, let's talk about your role as a police and crime commissioner. Let's be honest, mate, the police have been put into special measures. The fire service has been put into special measures. What can the police and crime commissioner do to your role to help move that forward?
Well, I was elected May last year, so I've been in just over a year. About a month after I got in, I was given a draft report from the HMI inspector and really indicating that the force had some serious problems which had been hidden from me prior to my election. So I had to get to grips with that issue. I've done so. I've recruited over 200 extra police over this last year and agreed lots of investment on IT. So I think after the year, the force is on top of the recording reported crime, which was one of the problems that was highlighted in the HMI report. So for instance, we got 10,000 extra crimes over the year that have been recorded. So I think they're on top of that. What they're not on top of is the force control room and 999 and 101 non-emergency answer times. They're totally unacceptable, have been so for quite some time. It's proving a more difficult problem to solve than I thought. As I said earlier, demand is rocketing around the country. And this month of August is our busiest period, antisocial behaviour and all sorts of issues. So that complicates trying to find a solution to the force control room. and I'm doing everything I possibly can to get to grips with that. But I think it's probably going to take another 6 to 9 months to get on top of the 999 and 101 answer times.
Now, a couple of let's sort of go into some positive stories about the police. Yeah, obviously you've won an award recently for being one of the most greenest police forces in the country, so congratulations on that. But the big news is that Bamford Place, Bamfurlong, sorry, is going to. Can you just explain what Bamfurlong is and when's it coming on stream?
Yeah, Bamfurlong is an operations centre just off the M5, and over the last year it's been rebuilt, refurbished, about 12, 13 million pounds, and that will come online in the next few months, which will mean that all the police that were redistributed from that building and squashed into lots of other buildings, police buildings around the county, will be able to go back in to there, and that should improve their life, improve response times, because the police being near the motorway, they'll be able to more quickly get to where they need to get to in an emergency.
Now, this is just off the M5, guys, on Junction by the Golden Valley, isn't it? It's got some stables there as well, I believe.
Yes, it does. It's a brand new stables for our mounted detachment.
You know how much I love the police horses.
I know you do, Mark. Almost more than you do your sheep.
Did you know that the Gloucestershire Police have 6 police horses, guys? Who knew? Who knew? Anyway, let's move on from that. Thanks ever so much, Chris. Great to have you on as always. Polly. Let's talk about the university. I mean, it's very exciting what's happening in Debenhams, but and that seems to have really, grabbed the attention, not just locally, but nationally as well. But your role within it, can you just explain what you do, please?
So my role within the university is to look after business engagement. So it's sort of commercial courses, our apprenticeship, operations, and the ways in which the university connects and works with businesses locally, really, is part of what I do. So apprenticeships is a really big area for us. Obviously, most businesses are either, if you're over, your pay bill's over 3 million, you're paying a levy, and people want to spend that. So apprenticeships is probably the main way that we work with organisations. The Growth Hub also looks after about 10,000 different organisations in Gloucestershire. So there's a variety of ways that the university connects with business.
And talking about the Debenhams side of things as well, what do you think about that? You must be really pleased.
It's funny actually, because it's not that long ago, a couple of weeks ago, I went round the new build with Stephen, and we walked round, and they've taken all of the walls out now, so you can really, it's a big L-shaped building. It's 20,000 square meters. So if you actually went into Debenhams in its sort of, the sort of swan song of Debenhams as was in Gloucester, you probably would have seen less than a third of that. And so they've had a huge amount to clear out. They've taken it all out, and it's a really impressive space. There's 5 floors, a basement, and then 4 floors above that. And they're doing everything they can to preserve the architecture of it. So it's going to be a fantastic space. There will be, on the ground floor, there'll be a cafeteria and access to the library for everybody. That will be open to the public. And then our health and social care courses will go into there, and latterly education, and I think some humanities.
And in the end, it's going to be, isn't it 7,000 or 8,000 students we're going to have?
Yeah.
Hopefully, buying around and spending.
Yeah, well, they do spend money, students. I will say that for them. And you can already see, when we walk round, you can already see that there's bars and cafes and things moving in. We're hoping to have, the build will happen in stages, but we're hoping that we'll have the new students in fairly quickly. But that bottom ground floor space that was the retail space will there'll be public access to that, and we'll be doing sort of retail support for enterprise in there and things as well, I expect.
It's really, really exciting, which actually, talking about, you are right, there were 3 new cafes, or well, 2 cafes and a pub, just on St Aldernate Street alone already. We're going to move on, because that is a nice link, if you don't mind me saying, to Alisdair. I'm just going to move you aside to one side, Simon. I like to move you to one side, only when I play golf against you. Alisdair, commercial property, retail property, what it's looking at the moment?
Well, I'm glad you linked me there, because I was about to try and jump in to say that's exactly what what I've been seeing in terms of the market, the commercial property market, and Cheltenham and Gloucester in new actually retail hospitality opening, and that attracting others to open around them. But going back a bit, just to mention Willens, so we've expanded. We're now 101 people, having had 70-something people in 2019.
Wow! Congratulations.
So yeah, we just sort of reached this watershed of over 100 people.
Can I ask who the one person was?
No, yeah, I think they should get a prize.
Yeah, you should, yeah, give them something. Anyway, you've got 101 people.
101 people, and yes, and we, like a lot of the local solicitors, cover private client work, as well as corporate commercial work, whether it's buying and selling companies or buying and selling commercial property, which is what I do. And there has been a phenomenal amount of work, and I think that's the reason for that is pretty obvious, in that the whole real estate market has been turned on its head, hasn't it, because of the pandemic. Retailers are going online. It's all the obvious things, which is going to take quite a few years to settle down in this sort of massive change of how everyone shops and everyone goes out about their way in town centres.
But it's quite funny, Alisdair, you mentioned that, but there's some new figures out just this week saying that footfall has gone down, to the pre-pandemic level. Actually, it's less than it was before the pandemic, and the main reason for that are people work from home. So surely you must be seeing that through the commercial marketplace for offices, or are people going smaller, or new startups?
Yeah. Well, this is just the settling down. I don't think anything's even settled down yet. I mean, the office market hasn't had. Talking about more locally, in London, Bristol, the big centres, those massive purpose-built offices are entirely different. But the change there is that more people working at home, when they come in, people require more space. So a lot of businesses are refurbishing, creating more social spaces, and that takes up more space per square foot than everybody being in desks in a row. That's just the office market. While everybody's working at home, they're shopping online, and I don't think even in a technical recession that's going to stop. I think that's going to keep going and getting more and more popular. So that then drives the warehousing, storage distribution market.
Just down the M5, isn't it? Junction 12, 13, 11.
Yeah.
What's happening down there?
Just quickly, I've heard of one transaction. I've dealt with one myself, where in the storage distribution warehousing, where purchasers are so desperate that in one case they paid 2 million over the asking price because they're so desperate to get this property, and another where they've similarly paid over the asking price because they wanted so desperately to expand from next door. So
is this Gloucestershire?
Yes. Yeah.
You're not going to tell us who, though, are you?
No, I can't do that. But it just shows that market sort of overheated whereas offices and retail are different, and it's just a massive shift which is going to take years to flow through.
I totally agree with you. It's very, very interesting. We're fortunate to live so near the motorway. You don't hear me say that very often. Thanks for that, Alisdair. Simon, let's talk about Swan Financial, please. So how long has the business been going?
Started in 2006 with just me and my two partners then, Andrew Swan and Peter Coolin. We've just sort of expanded on from there. We were literally 3 men, 1 desk and 1 phone. We come from a IFA background and we joined St James's Place in 2006. Just slowly built the business up. We all started from a home service background. So I started with a good old co-op some 30 years ago, literally with a book, going around and collecting the premiums from the doors, to beyond our wildest dreams now, with sort of over 600 million pounds of funds under management, 45 staff, 14 advisors. So yeah, gone from strength to strength, really.
Now, a lot of your business isn't done around here, though, is it? You kind of...
No, well, the office is in Banbury. We did have one in Northampton, which we closed just after the pandemic due to staff wanting to work from home. I was sort of against it to start with, but that's actually worked out to be a great thing for us. So we still have the office in Banbury. So no, I haven't got much of a profile around Gloucestershire, although I've been here for the last 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, I always think, because I've met you a couple of times, I always think it's one of those things where we get pigeonholed, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
Not saying that you've been pigeonholed, but we all do it. But also, you're connected to St James's Place, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. So we're affiliated with St James's Place, who I say have 150 billion of funds under management, and have a real sort of push at the moment for ethical, sustainable governance funds, and that's a hot topic everywhere. And I'm far from a tree hugger, but it's actually the way forward. And the strapline for St James Place is, invest in a better future in a world worth living in, which I think actually makes a lot of sense. We also have our own charitable foundation, which I think raises a couple of £1 million a year. And we actually, I think, gave over £1 million to Milestone School a few years ago to help them finish off theirs. So, we try to do the right thing for those less fortunate as well. But, at Swan, we specialise in anything really, wealth management, planning, inheritance tax is what I specialise in. Just a quick plug, we actually have an event at Ellenborough Park on October the 12th. So, because again, that's billions of pounds a year that people are paying in actually unnecessary tax, because it's something you can do about it. Okay, thanks so much. You're just as bad as Polly, actually. You're going to complete plug, mate. Right, no. Thank you ever so much. We're kind of running out of time now, guys. So my little sound thing says it's nearly done. So Chris, quickly, what have you picked out from this week's Punchline, please, sir?
It was a story by Lib Dem politician Jeremy Hilton, and a bit like the media, trying to turn a good news story into a bad news story, and just concentrating on things that aren't so good. And it was I'd done a presentation to the county council about antisocial behaviour, and talking about how I'd reduced it over the last year by 59%. And I'd given in my manifesto a target of 50%. And I think the Lib Dem politicians were so upset with me that I'd achieved that particular manifesto promise within a year, that they started to try and pick holes in other things. So I thought it was a little bit sad.
Well, that's fair enough. Luckily, we live in a democracy, and they had the freedom to report back what they thought as well, Chris.
True.
To every story, there's a side.
I'm a great Democrat.
Anyway, we'll have to phone up Jeremy Hilton now and see what he thinks about your comment. Anyway, right, moving on. Polly. So what have you picked out from this week's podcast?
Well, another shameless plug from me, Mark. You'll be pleased.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. So on Monday, you have the story about Lynette Barrett being appointed chief exec for National Star. And Lynette is a great friend of the university. She's just fairly recently completed her senior leaders degree apprenticeship with us, which got her an MBA. So she works very closely with us. She's setting up her own apprenticeship delivery at National Star. And National Star, as you know, is just an absolutely fantastic organisation. So we're really pleased for her. We've had, in the past, we've had National Star students on placements with us, and the confidence and the capabilities that they've got, you know, I would advocate for anybody to be involved with that. And Lynette, I'm sure will do brilliant things. Obviously, we know National Star as you know, because of our own branch here, but it is, as it says, a national organisation. There's outposts all over the country. So it's a big job she's taking on, but I'm absolutely sure she'll be brilliant at it.
Big business as well, over 1,000 staff.
Yeah.
Thanks ever so much for that, Polly. Simon, what have you picked up from this week's Punchline, please?
I picked out, which I thought was a really good article, again, sticking with the ethical, sustainable, a breath of fresh air for Tewkesbury High Street, how they have, since 2008, tried to get the air quality management area down the High Street just alone, and stopped any heavy goods vehicles over 7.5 tons from going through the High Street. And they've just got a big plan for reducing nitrogen dioxide levels by 5%. They're putting a lot more EV charging points in. And it just makes me wonder what the future looks like for, you know, I know with London paying the toll for going in there, how many other cities that will happen to soon. You know, it's just almost inevitable, isn't it?
No, totally agree. They've done a great job there.
And just one other quick one was, I noticed you visited the new burger joint, Burger Boy, yesterday. And just from a purely selfish point of view, I just wondered if you managed to sample the goods and what it was like.
Well, funny enough, I did. They gave me a free burger. I only went down there to cover the story. They gave me a cheeseburger, and it was very nice.
Was it?
Very nice.
Yeah.
It was super nice, actually. And one thing I would say about it is I met the franchisor and the franchisee, and I always love meeting these guys. The guy's opening 20 restaurants in a year. He's opening the franchisor. He's opened 5 already, and he's on this fast track to open as many as he can. And the guy from Wales who invested here in Gloucestershire spent £460,000 investment. So go down there, just off Mertz Way, near Morrison's. Fantastic burgers. Give me a try. Anyway, thanks ever so much for that, Simon. Alisdair, what have you picked out from this week's Punch?
Well, yeah, touching on the burgers again, because the food's that close to my heart as well. Despite where we started talking about recession and the doom and gloom, I think I can pick up on pretty much all of your current front page on Punchline, in that they're good news stories, a lot of them related to property and how that's improving our towns and town centres. So the headline is the Gate Centre, the 12.5 million levelling up funding. I think that's an application. So, but that looks stunning. It almost looks like sort of Madrid or somewhere, the picture you've got there. We've got Saffron, big sales. You've got Next doing well, and Blackfinch Energy expanding with triple hire. So, you know, I don't think recession is on the cards immediately across the board, that's for sure.
Funnily enough, Mark, sorry, just funnily enough, Alisdair, some good news is one of our best performing funds since the turn of the year has actually been our commercial property fund, which obviously has done.
I'll work with you later.
Yeah.
There we go. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. I'd just like to thank our fantastic guests. Thanks ever so much for joining us, Punchline Talks. I'd like to thank Hazelwood's accountants and business advisors, and just like to thank you for watching. If you like the show, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm actually having a break for 2 weeks, so I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye.
Yes, bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.